AIDS to Scouting podcast, which we're uh, getting off the ground these days. We're hoping that our podcasts are going to be seen sooner or later all around the world, and it will be in support of the whole scouting movement, which, of course, started in 1907, 1908 in England and spread quickly around the world. And now there are just millions of scouts and tens of millions of former scouts. And uh, I'm a former scout, and Elliott's a former scout. Elliott is our sidekick, our trusty sidekick. That's how he's got listed. And tonight we have a very special guest, who is Mollie Engelhart. Now, we're going to talk about, I'm going to let her kind of brag about who she is and all, but I know her because she writes a lot of agricultural related columns that I've been reading. The most recent one was about why beef prices are so, they're actually too low right now. They're too low to encourage larger herds to be established and maintained, and too low to actually be profitable for the ranchers and farmers who keep cattle. Now, Molly, why don't you give everybody a little bit of an idea about your background?
Yes, I am famous for being a vegan chef turned Texas cattle rancher. This upset some people, and so that is really what I'm known for is going from being this restaurateur in Los Angeles, restaurants on Sunset Boulevard and all of that to becoming a Texas cattle rancher and making that shift. And did that not because I thought it was like the best thing for money or whatever, but that I really do think that God has a design and that nature is expressing that design and that we have a place and a role in nature, that we're not supposed to be separate from it. And regenerative agriculture really inspired me to want to take my agricultural knowledge and everything to the next level. And I was first farming in California, and then we moved to Texas in 2023. And now I'm farming here in Texas. I have a restaurant right on the ranch. So we grow food for the restaurant right on the ranch. And we also raise beef, pork, lamb, and goats right here, as well as vegetables.
What part? What part of Texas is that? Can y'all hear me? Okay,
It's
Elliot.
Bandera, Texas,
In
and
where?
Bandera, it's in Central Texas in the hill country,
Okay.
and
And
we're
also,
in the
you said
eye of the drought with the drought that's happening, but we're also in Kerr County where all those floods happened, and we lost a bunch of people in July
mm,
4th, tragedy, and so we're in the middle of a drought, and we had a terrible flood, which is a weird combination.
when you said regenerative agriculture, a lot of people don't understand what we're talking about here. I do, of course, because I know you and I know Will Harris, and we'll talk about Will in just a minute. But what tell people what you consider what regenerative agriculture is all about.
Yes, regenerative agriculture, we need a badge for that in the, Boy Scouts, but, it is a certain kind of agriculture that has 6 principles. So there is context, you want to farm for where you are because you can't grow mangoes in Central Texas, it would not be a good idea. So context, the next one is no-till or low-till, not tilling the soil, no tillage, no chopping up the soil. The next is cover crops. The Mother Earth is modest. She wants to be covered. It helps with microbiology, it helps with water infiltration and all of that. The next is no chemicals or low chemicals, and then biodiversity. And then the most important is animal integration, where you use animals in between when you're growing other crops. And then also you use even in just grazing systems. We do holistic planned grazing or mob grazing. We move our animals every single day. So
How
those
much?
six
How much acreage are you farming right now?
We don't have a lot. It's 206 acres, but it's enough to keep us busy.
Well, that's true of almost any farm will keep a farmer busy if he tends to his work.
Yes,
That's
sir.
that's for sure. Tell me about that. Let's talk about the economics of it. I mentioned before in the before we got started how scouting has a lot of merit badges, and it was a lot of which were um, put into place back in the 1920s and 30s and 40s because so many boys lived out on farms. So they had poultry, they had beekeeping. I'm not sure of how many of these are still going, but then they had soil and water conservation. They had forestry merit badge. I remember I got that one, and they had a lot of that sort of thing. So, but let's talk about the economics of what you do, and and as opposed to what I guess you'd call it commercial agriculture, and what do you and Will call the beef industry and the meat industry these days as practice now?
Yeah, just commercial or chemical farming if it would be vegetables and stuff like that, or conventional farming is also what we would call it. Um, the economics for farming is not good, no matter if it's regenerative or conventional. To be honest, we've lost 170,000 farms in the last uh, 8 years, and so that's 1 in 15 farms we've lost in the last 8 years. We're literally in an agrarian collapse. It's a full on Farmageddon, and most people are completely unaware. And so the economics of farming, and I just wrote an article about this and it hasn't come out yet, but basically 85% of farmers are working an off-farm job, including me. Like you said, I write for Epoch Times, almost a daily column. That is another job. And then I also have a restaurant, so that is another job. But 85% of farmers are working an off-farm job for the privilege of growing your food, which means that our food is subsidized massively by farm labor that is getting their income from something else. And that means that people are either losing money or breaking even, but can't make enough money to live from their farm. So that doesn't work. That system is clearly in collapse right now. So some people would tell you there's a lot of ways to make more money with regenerative agriculture, and other people will tell you it's very, very hard to make money with regenerative agriculture. And I think that it's all, again, the context. If you bought land, if you leased land, if you inherited land, that's going to have a huge impact. But right now, what you and I pay in the grocery store, by some estimations, is only 30% of the true cost of our food, and it's being subsidized by government subsidies, kind of insurance subsidies that are kind of not that great, free farmer labor, family members on the farm, free labor, and all of that's not calculated into our food costs. But having local food is a national security issue, and having farmers is important if we want to maintain our rural culture and have rural America. And it's in real trouble, no matter if you're talking about conventional farms or regenerative farms. Like, look what's going on with the soybeans. And right, this is, maybe someone watches this later and this is all solved, but Trump and China and soybeans, there's a whole tariff thing, and China is 60% of all soybean purchases in the world, and they're not purchasing any soybeans from us. So there's a bunch of soybean farmers with their harvest saying, "Well, who's going to buy it?" And the prices are down because of that. So it's a very unresilient system as we have it, and it's very efficient, but it's not resilient and it's not doesn't have longevity.
Well, one thing that bothers me is is the exhaustion of the natural fertility of the soil from row cropping. Is this, to me, it's a disaster that's already here. Because it, as far as I understand, and you're the expert or one of the experts, but agriculture in the United States could not even begin to operate without massive amounts of fertilizer, and then the herbicides, and then the pesticides, and all the things that conventional farming uh, is relying on. I know that Will talked about how much the organic matter in the soil is, like 2% or something, when it's row cropped, and then he's over the years been able to build it up to 12 or 15 or 18%.
2% would still be considered a high organic matter. We're talking it's less than that in most
Ooh.
places. 2% would be considered uh, a good amount of soil organic matter. Um, you're completely right, but I want to make sure that we don't villainize farmers because there's so much financial pressure and everybody's just trying to survive.
Mhm.
Nobody wants to be the generation that loses the family farm and the legacy in which they were handed. And we have to create an off ramp for farmers. The consumers have to demand something better, but we have to be willing to pay a little bit more for that. And we have taken so much farmland out of farming, and we've just expected farmers to get more and more and more efficient. But there is a cost to that. And the soil organic matter and the health of the soil really matters in the nutrient density. And so we have a crisis of obesity in this country because we have plenty of calories, but we don't have any nutrients. So people keep eating because they feel hungry because they're not getting the nutrient density that's necessary to feed their mitochondria, DNA, and keep their bodies really, really healthy. So there's a deep connection between the soil health and human health. And, plants don't make minerals, they only take them out of the soil. And it takes microbiology to make those minerals available. And when we're just pouring on nitrogen, phosphorus on top, then we can grow a big plant, but it doesn't have that mineral content that it would if it was being done in the natural way of fertilizing the soil with carbon and nitrogen in the forms of poop and grass and hay and whatever that breaks down, creates mycorrhizal relationships and that soil food web, then it can eat what's already in the soil. There is no soil that doesn't have enough nutrients in it. It's just whether those nutrients are available or not is directly related to how much life is in the soil.
Well, it's my understanding too that the leaving land exposed to the sun kills the microbacteria and the things that the soil needs in at least the top half inch of the
Yes.
soil. And so that's one of the reasons why no-till and cover crops are important. Uh, one thing that because of the nature of the people that might be listening to this soon or a little bit later, I'd like for us also to address gardening. But before we get, just the small, I think every child needs to have some experience gardening. But before we do that, and before we get away, you talked about nutrient dense products. Is there a scientifically measurable difference between the nutrients available in grass fed beef and that's just feedlot beef?
Yes, sir. And some of them are thousands of times more, and some of them are one times more, and some are 10 times more. But yes, there is a science, and it's not just that. There's a citrus grower in Florida, I want to say, and he took the same exact genetics of tree planted across the street from him, took this orange from the neighbors and the orange from him, and sent them to the lab. Exact same kind of trees growing in the exact same kind of area, similar age of the trees. And, some of the things were 20 times, 30 times more nutrients in the oranges that he was growing regeneratively than the guy that was growing it not like conventionally. So it is true that you have to eat like 10 apples to get the nutrients that you used to get from an apple a long time ago.
I remember I watched a program once about a county, a big county in, I think it was Iowa, where they did a study and they said, well, back at 1900, we grew all these different crops here in our county. And now it's soybeans, corn, and wheat. And almost, and so almost all of our food dollars are going out of the county. And so they came up with an idea that we should feed our schools and our prisons and everybody else as locally as possible with
Yes, and
small
this
truck
is so
farms and
true.
mhm,
So true in every state and as a
yep,
country now we're a
mhm.
net importer of food and even agricultural states. some of the agricultural states are the largest importers of food because they're just exporting, like you said, corn and soy, and then they're importing everything else to eat, and they're not
Mhm.
feeding locally. But this is a very important issue, and if we want to solve um, some of these crises that are facing farmers, we must encourage people to buy directly from the farmer.
Will talk to, and by the way, everybody, when we talk about Will, we're talking about Will Harris of White Oak Pastures at Bluffton, Georgia. And you can find that on the internet and all that. And by the way, Mollie's going to tell you about her operation there. And she's got the sign behind her and where you can find, there we go, at Bandera. There we go. But Will complained, and I think a lot of people are complaining about food that's imported to this country, then it's repackaged and it's labeled product of the United States. And that's particularly, I was a beekeeper until my bees all died. But that's particularly true of honey. Now, if it comes from some country that has no standards, and they ship it in 55-gallon drums, and then you go into Kroger or someplace and it says product of the U.S., but it's not from the U.S. That honey isn't,
Because if
and
they added value in the United States of America,
yeah,
then they can say that. So that if it says product of the USA on your beef, then it's likely not a product of the USA. It's likely came here hanging in a refrigerator truck and then, or a refrigerator container on a ship, and then was chopped up here.
yeah,
The other problem with that is there's meat coming from all around the world to these four major packers, and these four major packers are grinding up the ends and everything to make ground beef. So you're eating ground beef, and it could have as much as 1,000 different sets of genetics in one hamburger. Well, I don't know that we were meant to eat 1,000 different sets of genetics in one hamburger. I don't think that that's the design. I think our heritage, our history, the people in the past that we come from likely killed a animal and then ate that animal. And that's how we do our ground beef here. It's single origin. Um, so if you get our ground beef, it was from a cow. And then we'll have a weird random amount that we eat here for the family, and then we go to the next cow. And that way it is the single origin ground beef.
well, I kind of think that even if, and Will says this, he says the beef that comes from Brazil might be as good as mine, but it's fraudulent. He didn't say that fraudulent, but I say it. It's fraudulent to pass that off as American beef,
It
and
is.
and it's fraudulent to pass it up the honey off or anything else as other than what it is. And I
And
think
it's
that's,
informed consent. It's all
yep,
comes back to
yeah,
informed consent. If
yes.
the consumer doesn't care that it's honey from China, then that's fine. But if it says product of the USA and they think they're buying organic honey from the USA, and you don't, but because China's standards for organic is not the same as ours.
Or if they have standards at all that can't be bribed around and so forth. And that's a, I've read some terrible things about the fish and shrimp production in places like Vietnam, where and it just, I mean, people are going to eat, but it's a shame that I think people are going to have to pay more for what they get, but they need to get what they pay for, and
Yep.
that's so that's a disconnect. When I go into a grocery store and I see organic milk or grass fed, the milks, and I'm thinking it wouldn't surprise me if it all came from the same huge feedlot, or dairy,
Yeah,
but
I
they
don't
just
know.
label it and get more money for it. You
Yeah, I don't know. I know I've been certified organic, and here in the United States, they test your products, and you'll get fined if it has chemicals in it. So,
Is that a state level testing or federal?
uh, I was certified organic with CCOF, which is, I guess, the California certification. So I don't
Hmm.
know, but the other one, I'm not sure. I haven't tried to do it here in Texas though. I'm Regenified, which is Gabe Brown's certification for regenerative agriculture here in Texas.
What do you think about raw milk? Do you have any opinions about people selling raw milk?
I think that it's the rights of everybody to drink raw milk if they want to, and that the government is not the government's job to be in between us. I'm a huge proponent of raw milk. I lost like 40 pounds doing a raw milk fast for 46 days for Lent last year. And had four children in my late in life. I had my last kid at my first kid at 47 and my most recent kid at, I mean, 37 to 40.
Yeah.
So 37 to 45, I had 4 children and I couldn't lose the weight. And I did a raw milk fast to reset my microbiology in my gut. And it was very successful. And I lost a lot of weight.
Well, I just went through a standard fast, a 4-day fast, but on the raw milk fast, did you just have raw milk every day and that was it? That was the only thing you ate?
And I had tea. And then on a few days it was very cold. I had bone broth.
Hmm.
But I had given up, I always give up coffee for Lent. So I'd given up coffee. And
Yeah.
then I, gave up food, and I did do some fermented milk like kefir and, yogurt that I made out of my raw milk, but, that was it for 46 days.
That's cool. Um, did you uh forgot what I was gonna say.
Well,
That sounds like a
it goes
great process.
it's crazy because it goes against all logic of how to lose weight, right? Because 'Cause you're supposed to have a calorie deficit. It's all about calories in, calories out.
Yep.
But I was drinking a gallon of raw milk a day, which is like
Oh,
a lot of calories, 24 that
yep.
100 calories to
Yep.
3,000 calories. I'm not a good eater, like, I'm always running. You just saw me shoving a
Yep.
little snack in my mouth before we got on. And so, I never eat 4,000 I mean, through 2,500 to 3,000 calories in a day. Maybe 1,000 to 1,400 would be normal for me. And so, I was almost doubling my calories, and then the weight was just melting off. So it's also about nourishment, I think, in the losing weight and having your body feel very nourished so it can let go of the weight.
Well,
And
I watch those that Eric Berg, that fellow that has all the nutrition, the short nutrition things, and what I think he would say is that it's insulin resistance. When you eat sugar and carbs, your body stores it as fat. But when you're eating fat directly from the milk, then it's different. It's just a whole different system going on. And so that's probably the main thing.
I think so. Yeah.
By the way, do you have, as long as we're just condemning modern life, do you have any big opinion about this new administration and Kennedy, Robert Kennedy? It seems to me that at least they're trying to take hold of some issues that have just been ignored for 50 years. It,
I have mixed feelings. I I feel like I mean, I never thought in my lifetime we'd be talking about vaccines at that level. So on
yep.
one level, I'm grateful for that. On
Mhm.
the other level, this administration as a whole, I feel disappointed and that they seem to be pretty captured by the same technocracy that wants us to be having programmable money, digital IDs, and kind of entrapped in the money slave system. And
Mhm.
I had really thought, obviously, the Democrats wanted that. They were pushing it during COVID. And I had thought that Trump would slow it down. But his partnership with Peter Thiel has made me rethink that. And I think that Robert Kennedy is trying to get things to happen, but on the other hand, I do feel a little bit concerned that um they're focusing on some other things and they are now just getting on to the vaccine stuff, so I'm glad that that's happening. So on one hand, I'm totally grateful, and on the other hand, I want them to do more, I guess is my answer.
Well, I'm just so grateful that they're talking about nutrition being the basic problem. The new and that why talk about pharmacy and all this and pills and all that when what we should be looking at is obesity and that whole nutrition problem. And it seems to me that goes to exactly what you're doing is nutrition, and providing nutritious materials for people to eat, even if it has to be expensive. Yes, Elliot, what were you coming in about?
Obesity, just kidding. No, no, what about the Kennedy thing? I think, the biggest problem in what our parents all of our parents told us at some point in our life is, "It's not what you say, it's how you say it." And I feel like sometimes he's going about it all wrong, but he's hitting on some good points. That was all. I don't know what I don't know if it's,
Like the other day when he said we're doing the studies so we could get the evidence. Well, obviously he didn't mean it that way, but now
yeah, yeah, right, exactly. Okay, that's all.
No, that's cool. That's cool. Um, tell me, you said you're raising these other animals, and you have hogs, right?
yes,
You have
sir.
how many hogs are you running right now, if I may ask?
At all ages, we probably have about 100 at different stages of life.
Well, where do you have a local slaughter plant, or do you do it yourself?
We have a local USDA facility that's about an
Yeah.
hour away.
Well, you remember that I'm sure you know from visiting Will that he ended up just having to build his own plant, one for poultry and one for uh, meat, and that was expensive. It'd probably be a lot more expensive today than it was a few years ago when he did it.
Yeah, we
But
just don't have the volume that he
yep.
has, so it wouldn't make sense.
Well, it's my understanding that the pork industry is almost completely run by Chinese owned entities, and that
Yes.
the plants they have are just slaughtering enormous numbers of pigs every day.
Yeah, we have a pig, our pig problem or our pork problem is bacon. Everybody wants bacon.
Mhm.
And then we are left over with so many pork chops and sausages and everything else. And like right now, I'm running a special, and this might not sound cheap to some people, but I'm running a special. It's $100 for 10 pounds of pork, which is comes to $10 a pound, which is cheaper than, but that's like pork chops, that's sausage, that's all different things, chorizo, all mixed up. But because we have to move the rest of the pig, but we keep having to harvest pig so we can have bacon in the restaurant for brunch. And so that's our issue with pig is that people eat way more bacon than they do anything else, except for that there's a whole pig attached to that belly. We need to use the rest of the pig.
Well, do you ship with dry ice from your
Yes,
place?
yes, sir, we do.
Well, then make sure everybody can see behind you there, and so they can. Do you
Ranch.
do you have a website?
Yeah,
Do
we
y'all
do.
have,
It's sovereigntyranch.com, and, yeah, you can go there, and we have all different stuff, not just meat, like, we make homemade vinegar out of persimmons, and we have a peach vinegar that's almost done. I'm hoping it'll be done by Christmas or, like, in time to buy for Christmas presents, and then, we have persimmons vinegar, we have grape vinegar, we have all different kinds of tinctures, oil, garlic mullein oil for your earaches. We have different kind of cold tinctures and all different things for athlete's foot, all different kinds of apothecary stuff, and then all different teas and different things on our website. So we vanilla, spices, all types of stuff that we grow here on the farm, not just refrigerated stuff, but we do have all of that.
that's cool. If I may ask, sometimes I've heard that asking a farmer how many cows do you have is like asking what your net worth is. So I don't mean to pry; it's your business, but
I
you
have
do.
about 30. I have about 30 mama cows.
Well, I noticed in that article you wrote, you were talking about the lead time it takes to build up a herd. And
Yes.
then and boy, that's you were talking about from the I guess the moment of birth till when you're actually selling the offspring of a cow that you get is 5 years
Yes,
or
sir.
something
So,
like that.
well,
Yeah.
for example, if you go to my Instagram or YouTube, you'll see a calf was born yesterday morning,
Yes.
and
Hmm.
it's a bull calf. So, in the case of that bull calf, it's 2.5 years from when it hit the ground till it could be harvested. And so, but that mama was pregnant for 9 months, like before that, right? And so, if you're trying to grow your herd and then let's say this other two cows about to give birth, they give me a girl. Now, if I keep that girl, it's going to be at least 15 months till she's big enough to be bred, maybe 2 years, somewhere between 15 months and 2 years, depending on how fast she grows. And if you breed them too young, they'll never get as big as they should get. So let's say I breed her at 20 months. So she hits the ground tomorrow. In 20 months, I can breed her. And then 9 months after I breed her, she's going to have a baby. So now we're at 29 months. And then in 2.5 years, I can harvest that baby that she had. So that's if I'm making what's called a replacement heifer, or you're adding to the heifers and you're adding to the mama cows in your herd. So if
Mm,
I have a baby cow hit the ground tomorrow, it'll be almost 5 years till I can have any income off that cow. So you see, that's a slow process. And we're at the lowest stocking numbers that we've ever seen in the United States of America. And so, and it's going to get worse, I believe, before it gets better, because the prices right now are so high because of the screw worm, that people that are aging out are like, oh my goodness. I mean, my neighbor just called me with some cows and calves, and they're like 500 pounds, and he's getting 2,000 plus dollars at the sale barn for a 500 to 700-pound calf right now. That's crazy. If I tell you that, I mean, in 2019, I bought a bred Jersey cow with a baby in its belly, or a baby on its teat, new baby on its teat. I bought them for $1,500 a piece. If you want a bred Jersey cow right now that's a proven dairy cow, you might be paying $4,000 for it
mm.
or
Well,
more.
of course, the money, a lot of that's just, for example, if we were buying and selling in gold, we might find that's one thing I keep coming back to in modern life is that the price goes up, but that's just how much paper dollars you're having to give.
Yeah,
Whereas gold, yeah, I know, but it's money.
but
you,
it's
you know,
alive cows too,
yeah,
so you could lose, like, if I have a gold bar, that I have a gold
yeah,
coin, and it's now worth $4,200, right, for 1 ounce of gold right now, and
yeah,
maybe I bought it
mm,
at
yeah,
$2,000. So that's that. But with live beings, we had a bad year this year. I lost 3 first-time heifers due to too large of babies, childbirth problems,
mm,
whether they died in childbirth or they got infection from prolapsed uterus afterwards. 3. And then I lost 1 Angus mama to I don't know what. She had a baby. She died 48 hours after she had the baby. I don't know what was wrong. So, and then I had a bull push this older mama cow off of a hill, and then she broke not she messed up her ankle or her foot, and I couldn't get her back up, and I had to put her down. 5 cows and some of their calves gone, out of the scene, out of the
mm,
system. And so when you think about that, we're talking about whether it's dollars, and nowadays dollars or not, the accidents happen. And so all of a sudden I lost $30,000 just like in a couple of weeks.
that's
And
terrible.
so the thing about livestock, and that we think about the name, it means it is livestock. It's a stock that you're holding, and it's alive. And so livestock can die, and it's not going to be a crash in the market. You can have a crash in the market that impacts your livestock, but there could also be something like Bubba the Bull, who just threw the largest calves I've ever seen and took out a bunch of my first time heifers. I'm not exaggerating you. I only have one first time heifer that survived birthing his calves. So
Mm,
they're just too big. And she was a big first time heifer. She didn't get bred the first time season I bred her. And so she was big, and she's a Normandy Jersey cross. And so she's just a big, big cow. But none of my other first time heifers survived his babies.
mm,
And I lost 2 Guernseys and a Jersey, and then I lost the what Angus mama
yeah,
from something different. That was a different baby, it was an Angus baby. It was little. And then I lost the cow that, and she was probably weak because she was a milk cow, and she was nursing all those 3 babies that the other mamas died. She was nursing those babies, and the bull pushed her, She got caught, tripped over, and fell into the woods off this little cliff, and I couldn't recover her. So that was 5 cows plus some of those babies was devastating in one time.
Yeah. Well, what if you were to, let's think of for a minute about scouts and people who are like 12 to 16 years old.
Yes, sir.
What would you say to them about understanding agriculture and considering going into ranching, uh, raising livestock, uh,
I
having gardens, or whatever?
I think it's the only skills that matter. I think that we live in a world where we think the skills are like, "Oh my gosh, my Instagram got 5,000 views or whatever, and we're excited about that." But really feeding ourselves is the most important skills that you're ever going to have. So I think everybody should be growing something, even if it's just herbs on your patio or a little garden. I believe all kids, my kids are growing meat rabbits right now. They've had some struggles. They lost some meat rabbits and they're having to now get more girls because they lost some of their girls and they're in the process and they're learning about meat farming, but with rabbits on a small scale. And if you lose a rabbit, you can get another one for $20. It's not like a cow, but they're learning that. But I think that it's very, very, very important for us to get into um, knowing how to grow our food, where our food comes from, and how to slaughter an animal, how to hunt. And I would say that the 12 to 14 is the great time to learn those things. My son helps my husband. He's 11 in December. He helps my husband harvest animals. He goes hunting with my husband, and I think that's a great skill set.
Yep. It seems like it's quite a lost skill set for the vast majority of young people, at least
Yes,
in the
we
United
still need
States.
to eat, but we still all eat every day. Even Wendell
I've
Berry
noticed.
said, eating
Yeah,
is an
I've noticed that.
agricultural act,
Yeah.
and so we're very not interested in farming, but we're very interested in food. And that's a strange combination because, like Wendell Berry said, eating is an agricultural act.
Mm, good point. Good point. Elliot, do you have any input in this or any questions to ask Molly?
I'm really interested in raw milk. I've never had it, but
Me too. That
to hear that you went on that you said 48, 47 days,
46 days. Yeah.
46 days on that. That's incredible that that's even possible. I was at a gallon of it a day. That's really cool. Um, let me let me think about. I didn't have no. I've been intently listening this whole time.
I wanted to say something about the raw milk. It's 90% the same DNA, roughly, as human breast milk. And we
Mhm.
live in a world where we've progressively gone away from breastfeeding. We're doing, and this is Boy Scouts, but the natural way, like a cow would let the baby.
Boy, Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. The Boy Scouts and have girls in it now, but the whole thing about breastfeeding is extremely important, I think.
Very important.
And I noticed that RFK talked about it just the other day. And colostrum is another thing you could mention. A lot of people don't even know what that is, but that initial rush of colostrum
It's
is
very important.
very important.
So I believe that everybody, and this is not medical advice, you should ask somebody that you trust. But if you were raised on formula or you were a C-section baby, I think it's really important to do a fast with raw milk to try to help reset your microbiology in your gut to the correct direction. Because when you're a C-section baby, your gut gets colonized by the operating room and the microbiology that's on the skin of the people in the operating room, which it's supposed to be colonized by coming out of the mother. And so there's a different colonization of your gut. And then when you're not breastfed, the corn syrup and the milk solids actually grow different bacteria than is what's perfect for our immune system. And that is why breastfed babies have less obesity, have more less colds, less earaches, all of these different things, less sinus infections, and higher IQs.
Something paused there. That's all right. It'll come back on. I think Molly can hear us there. I've also seen about how children that are raised on a farm have all, they're exposed to all these different whatever, and they are healthier. They've, like places like Switzerland, they've done these studies where children that are farm raised are healthier than children that are raised in a city.
Just feels like it makes sense.
Molly, are you there? You're frozen. Your picture is, but I don't know
Many
if you can
things.
hear us.
I
There we
can.
go.
I'm sorry. I don't know why that broke up, but I kept talking and it's StreamYard, so it'll record on locally on both sides. And when you post it, it will look perfect.
That's great.
Um,
That's great. But
but I do
this
think
was a
that the
very important
microbiology
discussion.
that we get. Yes, it's a very important discussion, and the microbiology that we get when we're children impacts how the rest of our life and our metabolic health is going to be forever. And so I encourage young women that are in the scouts, when you get into your 20s and you have children, or your 30s, please give your children that gift of breast milk, because it will impact how smart they are, how healthy they are, how many allergies they have. So many things will make a huge difference for them. And let them be dirty, let them play in the dirt. Don't sanitize and sterilize them all the time.
I've heard that the use of glycophosphates, the extensive use of it these days in agriculture, uh, has a way may have an influence on killing the gut biome in people. If you're taking in, just oatmeal and things like that, anything that's had a lot of glycophosphate on it. But I don't know if that's true or not.
Yes,
You,
glyphosate. Yes, sir. It is. It was glyphosate was actually originally um it was originally an antibiotic, and then it was a drain killer, a drain degunker, and then they saw that it killed everything when they put it out of the drain, and so they do an herbicide. But yes, you are correct. It does kill everything with a shikimate pathway, which is most of the microbiology in our gut. And Cheerios consistently come out with the highest levels of glyphosate, and it's often the first food we feed our children.
oh, that's sad. Of course, there's a lot of sad things. It's I keep thinking how in this. Oh, I raise chickens right now. And they get all kinds of freedom, so they're not caged chickens. And I see a lot about eggs. That's another thing is that just raw. I mean, good pasture raised eggs are. I see a constant recommendation of eating good eggs, and of course,
For
pasture
sure.
raised beef. You know,
Yes, sir.
and
It's the nutrient density is much higher when they can scratch around and eat the bugs and not just eating a grain diet. Just like we're
yeah,
not healthy when we're only eating a grain diet. Chickens should not only eat a grain diet. We actually get meat from the butcher, the offals that we don't eat here in the United States, and we feed that to our chickens. So I get all the guts and the heads and the hooves and all of
yeah.
that, and we give it to the chickens.
How about it, Elliot? Chime in again, Elliot, and then probably we ought to close it up
The hooves?
so this young lady can get back to all these different things. She's probably got to go out and deliver a sheep tonight or something. You do keep sheep, don't you? Also,
Yes,
Molly,
sir. We have
you-
sheep, and then yes, sheep and goats. We have both.
I believe if I'm not mistaken, sheep take a lot of especially at lambing time, they take a lot of attention right then because they need help. Is is that is that the
We try
case?
we try to eat the ones that need help at lambing time and leave the ones that need less help at lambing time.
Well, I know one thing. I really like the way lamb tastes. It's so good. Uh, it's kind of a shame they're not a whole lot larger than they are, so that we could get you know even
Big,
more.
bigger
Yeah,
lamb chop.
Yep.
Yeah, we have lamb curry in the restaurant tonight. Is was the special, and so it was vegetables and lamb with curry on a basmati rice, and it came with a flatbread made in the wood fire oven with garlic on it,
Yep.
and was
Make it
very
making my
filling.
making my mouth water. My mother, that was she used to every now and then. She was an excellent cook, and she every now and then would have lamb roast. And then what we loved about it is we knew that it would be followed by a lamb stew that she made that was perfect. Oh, I can still taste it. It was so good.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, I lamb is not that popular in this country. We actually have a hard time selling lamb sometimes.
Hmm.
It's
Well,
not
Care for
everywhere.
it myself.
You
what
don't
about
care.
uh, what about goats? Do y'all
Yeah, we have Nubian goats with a boar male, so the boys get culled for meat, and the girls are milk goats.
I heard about there was a some group around here in Georgia was raising goats, and they would have these Muslim groups would come and a whole like have a picnic and slaughter the goats out with their kids around in a halal way or something like that.
We haven't
Just
done that yet. We haven't got to that picnic program here at.
Well, as far
But
as sorry.
oh no, go ahead.
Well, here in Georgia, all around the suburbs where I've grown up, we have had a massive kudzu problem, and some companies around Georgia that have been raising goats will gather these goats into a trailer and then take a movable fence around to these kudzu areas because it's a real problem. The kudzu is a real problem and it's hard to get rid of. But they'll bring these goats to clean up these areas of the kudzu and other vegetation and just about any anything that goes, because they'll eat everything. And they'll
Yeah,
leave
I've
them there
seen a
for
bunch of people doing that.
yeah, I thought that was a really interesting thing to do. In Texas, is there a kudzu problem in Texas at all?
I'm not sure. I don't know what kudzu is, but I know that we do folks that do.
It's
well,
awful.
well, kudzu's actually it's very nutritious in the springtime for cattle, and so
But what is
and
it?
they
It's a kind of
it,
grass.
kudzu. No, it's a viney thing that grows about. If you go to sleep next to it, you might get choked to death. It grows so fast in the summer over here, but it was imported from Korea about 100 years ago, and it just got away, and it just climbs over everything and chokes out everything, uh, and it's interesting stuff. But it was brought for purposes of um, soil conservation. That was the main, but it's the roots are turned into an edible powder in Korea and other Asian countries, and so that's one thing I keep thinking a lot that scouting should have. They have a wilderness survival merit badge, but one of the things that children ought to learn is what wild plants can they eat. They uh, if
That would be a great one to do the foraging, doing a foraging.
yes, yes, it's some kind of a, but it's interesting how many things where you have a group of people move into an area and starve to death when the native people, the Indians or whoever, they were eating the acorns and all that sort of stuff. They knew how to work them and where to get them and what time to get them. But for people to starve just because they can't kill enough deer, is silly if there's other things they can be eating.
Yeah, we have to learn about that, but we haven't. Yeah, around here, there's acorns and argarita and the Texas persimmons and all this stuff, but people don't eat any of it anymore.
The persimmons are interesting because they're so inedible until they are edible, and then they're delicious.
There's
Uh,
some, so the fuyu, some of them are not like that. The Texas persimmon is black, and you can eat it when it's not all the way ripe. And then the fuyu is like the one that's flat that looks like a tomato. That
Yep,
one you can eat when it's hard. And then it's the teardrop one that you can't eat until it's very, very ripe, or it gives your
that's
tongue
what.
that weird feel.
Yeah, that's what we have here. Is that
Yeah.
yellow one? Yep.
Mm.
So
Yes, sir.
and
Um, well, yeah, we make vinegar out of those ones, those persimmons that you can't eat till the very end, because by the time
Mhm.
they're ripe, you can't eat them fast enough. And
Yep.
so what we do is we ferment them and make an excellent vinegar, almost to apple cider vinegar.
Mhm.
That's
You know, I hear a lot of good things that Dr. Eric Berg talks a lot about apple cider vinegar as a thing that people should drink in diluted quantities, but on a regular basis. Maybe you could uh, say something about that while we're while the subject's here.
A live vinegar, like with a live mother in it, like a apple cider, not a distilled vinegar, but a live vinegar is very, very good. We used to eat almost, most of our food was fermented. We didn't have refrigerators 100 years ago, just started to have refrigerators. And so the fact that we tend to just eat everything now that's not fermented, there's certain microbiology in our gut that really needs the fermented foods, and it's very good for us. And so we really want to eat fermented sauerkraut, kimchi, vinegar, sourdough bread, because a long time ago, mostly meat was dried in the sun with salt. Our vegetables were fermented. So many things were fermented, and that's how we ate. But nowadays, we don't barely eat anything fermented, just cheese and yogurt.
Well, you said something about live vinegar. I thought vinegar was just kind of like a chemical. There's a difference between a distilled vinegar and a live vinegar?
Yes, sir. If you see, you should be getting a vinegar that says with the mother or raw vinegar, but that's the kind you want. If you're the other one you're getting is more, it's been processed and it's not alive anymore. It's good for cleaning your house or descaling your coffee pot, but not really for eating.
I see. Okay. Well, that's good to know. I mean, I didn't know that.
my mom was a big proponent of that, and now I take part in that as well. I use the other one for cleaning.
Yes.
No.
It's also good for athlete's foot. If you ever get athlete's foot, you can heat up vinegar as hot as you can put your feet in it. And if you do that 2, 3 nights in a row, you'll get rid of your athlete's foot
The
100%. You don't
distilled
need to
one,
buy
the distilled one or the mother one?
either one. It has to do with the pH, but I
Okay.
use the distilled ones because
Yeah,
it's cheaper. But it will clear up your athlete's foot. And then if you even start to feel like a little tinge that's coming back, just do it again, and don't let it come back.
that's incredible. I didn't know that. I got a stinky foot problem.
Oh, the vinegar bath will help, and you can just do vinegar and water, or you can do straight vinegar if you feel like that it's really, um, like, in not it's like you have had a hard time getting rid of it, and then you can do 50% vinegar and water as a maintenance thing if you just start to feel it come back a little bit. But my husband's the cook in the kitchen and feet wet all the time. He used to have a problem with athlete's foot, but he does the vinegar bath, and then he does now he doesn't have athlete's foot, but he does twice a month a vinegar foot bath just as maintenance to keep the pH so it can't grow.
Is your husband was he born in Mexico? Is that
Yes,
he's
sir.
foreign born, I think. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
Mexican. He's indigenous, like Zapotec, which is like the indigenous people of south part of Oaxaca, close to the
Yep.
ocean.
Yep.
And he was born there, and he came here when he was 16, and we got married when he was 23, and we have 4 children. So yeah.
He's I hitchhiked through there in 1968 through Oaxaca.
Yeah, it's
So
beautiful down there.
yeah. Do y'all speak Spanish with the children enough so that they're learning it?
Yeah, my kids are all bilingual, and I actually try to talk to the kids in Spanish because that was a request of his. And so
Yeah.
now sometimes I've talked to other people's kids in Spanish because I in my head it's like all kids speak Spanish. So
Yeah.
like, a kid will be about to do something dangerous, and I'll be like, "Cuidado, cuidado, cuidado," and he'll be like, "That white kid doesn't speak Spanish," and I'm like, "Oh, sorry." Talk to all kids in Spanish now. So
It's so funny.
yes, but we do.
Yeah.
But my kids are bilingual, and bicultural, and yeah, they spend time in Mexico and spend time here, and yeah, we try to incorporate the different cultures and all of that, and that's fun and interesting. And we had a little pushback this was our first Halloween last year slash Dia de Muerte in um Texas, and so my husband is Catholic from Mexico, and they do the the Dia de Muerte, um, where you put your family members that have passed away and hang it up and decorate it. And people were calling like, "Is that devil worship out of the restaurant?" And I'm like, "Yes, it's not
Yeah.
devil worship. It's but people get very um yeah, people are very particular. And so I told my husband, I think we'll do the Dia de Muerte at our house and not at the restaurant this year because people were not wanting to come into the restaurant while the devil worship was there.
We
So
have a when at the World Jamboree of Scouts. I went to it in 2019, and I was one of the people that looked like Baden Powell. We have a little thing, and Baden Powell was the founder of Scouting and all that. So, but I speak Spanish not real well, but I was speaking like 30% of the time. There we go. See, but and we had the the host countries were the United States, Canada, and Mexico. And Mexico apparently has got a fairly good scouting program going right now. And it's and I'm hoping that the whole culture and government problems that Mexico has will straighten out. It's a tough problem. It's a problem everywhere, but uh,
And for
scout
America.
yeah, but scouting
yeah,
is
if there was more safe to be there, I'd probably live in Mexico because it sure is cheaper and
yeah,
the farmland is cheaper.
yeah.
But yeah, no, it's not safe.
Yes, and
Um,
that's so sad because the Mexican people I know, and I play soccer with a bunch of them, and th- probably half of them are not here legally, but they're just the nicest people. They are very nice and industrious and all that. So
Great
I mean,
people.
I think that I written pretty extensively about how I think we should secure the border, but I think that we should prioritize Mexico in having a long-term, low-skill work permit that
me
would not
too.
just be like B2 HBA, which are six
Yeah.
months or 10 months, having a full-time because, for example, I have seasonal workers for my visas from Mexico, but
Yes.
what's going to happen is December 15th, they will go home and they won't be able to come back till February 15th. But with paperwork and interviews and everything, it could be later than that. I'll be left for 3 months with no help on the farm.
Mm.
And many forms of agriculture do not qualify. Beef farming, dairy farming don't qualify for these HB A visas. And so I believe that we should have a work permit that's like for 10 years or 5 years, and they pay $10,000 for it because everybody's paying to cross the border. Don't let anybody pretend to tell you they didn't pay. And so we should get that money going to our government, have them paying their taxes and paying a stipend into Social Security, maybe not the whole amount, but maybe $10 per paycheck or something like that to support our Social Security, and then they can go home. They don't have to be stuck here, never visiting their families. They
That's
can
a
be
set.
legal, be free to go back and forth. I know so many people that had to watch their fathers die on FaceTime, and I don't think that that's fair. Or they have one kid here and they have one kid there, and they've never met their grandchildren. Like I prefer to have a permit that makes it so that people can move back and forth. And I think that we do need a more legitimized low skill work permit that we don't currently have. And I believe that prioritizing Mexico would be a positive for Mexico and for the United States because we're neighbors.
Sí, yo,
Mhm.
yo pienso que
Oh,
sí.
sí, sí, sí.
Uh,
Oh,
the
sí,
uh,
sí, sí.
I have one of our friends that's going to be doing one of these is a lady that goes all over the. She's a agricultural scientist that's at the uh, over at the University of Georgia at Griffin, and she goes all over uh, supporting scouting and the Catholic Church. So she travels all over the world, and she's going to be one of our guests pretty soon. And
Oh, that's exciting.
I keep thinking about doing it in Spanish. My Spanish is not that good, but I know exactly what you mean. I have friends that they can't go back to Mexico and see their family because they can't be assured of getting back in. It's just so sad.
Yes. It
But
is.
so
But
so
I'm hoping for a new plan path forward that would help.
yes, and you're a person of influence, so I'm sure you can do it. And I'll contact my. You write it up, and I'll make sure that my congressman knows your proposed
Okay. I just sent a
solution.
letter to Brooke Rollins. I just sent a letter to Brooke Rollins asking for
Mhm.
help in this way. And I just wrote an article. It hasn't come out yet. It might be a little too edgy for them, but about
Yep,
that it's almost like an attack on the farms that they're raiding farms and taking farm workers.
yep,
And we can't say we're going to secure the border if we don't make a pathway for other labor to come in because
I agree.
you have to have the other. And so that is my concern. And I think we've already lost 170,000 farms and we don't want to keep losing farms.
Well, over here we have the problem. Georgia used to be called the peach state. We were the biggest peach producer, and then I think South Carolina surpassed us in the 1960s or something. But you've got to have the right kind of labor. You've got to have a lot of labor, and it's got to be the right kind of labor to pick peaches. You can't have machines run through and pick them the
Yes,
way.
because you have to be careful. If you're not careful, you'll get
That's
beat up.
right. They ended up in Florida.
No, you need people. And
in in Florida, they came up with some idea where you have the oranges of a certain type, you spray them so that they weaken right at the stem, and then you go through with a helicopter or something and knock them all down, and then have trucks pick them up. But you certainly can't do that with peaches unless the peach is like a baseball, not a peach. You know, there's nothing better in the world than a perfect
that
peach.
sounds, I love
Oh,
a fresh peach. We had an
oh,
awesome peach season this year in Texas. Awesome
that
peach season.
that's great to hear. All right, well, let's call it an
Okay, well, it's
evening.
been fun.
Do
Yes,
what?
sir. I got four babies waiting for me.
Four babies waiting for you. That's a lot of nursing. That, that's
Yeah,
great.
only one is still nursing. I
I
have
would,
four,
yeah,
three other kids.
that's wonderful. All right, Elliot,
All right.
thank you so much for everything you do, and thank you so much, Molly. This has been great, and we'll and be sure to everybody remember that Molly's putting together. What's your podcast going to be called, Molly?
Talk to Molly. You can go to my YouTube channel right now and follow me. Talk to
Okay,
Molly or follow me on Instagram. Talk to Molly and Sovereignty Ranch also.
All
all
links will be
And I'm
available
right
in the description.
right.
almost every day on in the Epoch Times.
All right. Sounds great. Thank you. Good night.
Take care.
Y'all take care. God bless.